Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. You can see the way my smile is so broad. That's to tell you how happy I am that you clicked on this video. A couple of months back, I was working on a project and I made a mistake. There was a part along the center front that I had planned to cut on fold. I ended up not cutting it on fold, and I didn't realize that that would lead me to the solution I had been looking for all my life. Literally. So this video I'm sharing with you a discovery I made accidentally that helps me create a deep plunge neckline. You know, when you have a yoke attachment on a body and you're trying to get a very sharp V here. Yes, that's one. It can be very challenging because you have to do lots of pinning and then you manipulate your sewing, and at the end of the day it may not even come out great. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing with you one simple tip that will take all that headache away. So keep watching. By the way, if you like my outfit, this is a cow neck top. I have a tutorial for this on the channel. I will link it up above in the cards, and you can also check the description box for it. So let's get to it. I'll first start by creating my basic bodice block, and then we'll take it from there. Now I have my basic bodice ready, and I only created the front block because that's what we're working with. I also did the underbust tightening. You don't have to do that, it just depends on the outfit you're working on. My main focus is on the yoke and the deep V neckline. So let's go down. Okay, now here is the bodice we're working on, and first you decide on how deep you want your yoke to go. I'll work with 6.5 inches from the top. So go ahead, measure your body and mark where you want this yoke line to start from. So you draw a straight line. I'm going to mark the horizontal measurements, the bust, the waist. Like I mentioned, I've done the underbust tightening, and I'm making an assumption on some measurements here. So, okay, I'm assuming 30 inches here, so 7.5 inches plus extra 2 inches, that's 9.5 for the dart. And here I have the bust dart, 2 inches connected to the bust point. At this point, you want to create the depth of your yoke. Now, it depends on how deep you want it. So if, for instance, you want it to go all the way down, that is something else, and that's easier to do. But when you want that sharp V at the center front, that's where the challenge usually is. I'll mark the center here and mark, I'll connect it to the bust point. Okay, so I'll tighten the overbust by, I'll still come like 1 inch above here to tighten the overbust. So I'm tightening it by ½ inch on both sides, that's 1 inch, and I'll blend it into the shoulder like so. Okay guys, don't get confused about this. You can use any method you are used to, anyhow you're used to treating this aspect. Like I said, my focus is on the neckline, so I'm not even changing this line, but from here we're going downward. Let me turn it around so I can do it properly. So you mark as deep as you want it to go. So let me just measure 1 inch below the bust line, and that will be the depth for me. So I'm going to connect it to my dart here. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So now we have our yoke, and then we have the bodies. Okay, I almost forgot something. You can trace out your yoke separately so that you can blend these two together. So let me pick up a piece of paper and trace out my yoke. So I have traced out the pattern for my yoke here. So what I want to do next is to close up this dart okay, and to kind of smoothing out this part. So that's the essence of tracing out the yoke in the first place. So take your curve and smoothing out this part. Okay, so now we know that this line must extend just a tiny bit right here. So I can go ahead now to cut. Now that I have this piece, I will then go ahead to transfer, to close up the bust dart. I'll also cut out the yoke and close up this dart. Now here is the yoke. I'll also close up the darts on this yoke. So you can actually close it up and then blend this line properly, but we don't have much issue around here. Now I'm going to transfer these pieces to fabric. I'll use a tool for this, and for these ones I will use, let me show you guys the fabric. So I'm making use of this crepe fabric, and here is the black tool we'll be using. Now here is the side panel. This is the pattern for the center front panel, and here is the yoke. So for the yoke, notice what I did with the allowance here. I didn't just cut it sharp, okay? I continued my ½ inch allowance, and then I added ½ inch to this tip. Now don't look at the paper. The paper is sharp, but when I was cutting it onto, I don't know if you can see this part, okay? So it also helps to make the job easier. But this is where the real hack is. So don't cut this part on fold. Make sure that you cut these two pieces separately, okay? Make sure you add your ½ inch seam allowance even along that center front. So when you cut it on fold, the sewing challenge still exists. But if you cut it as two separate pieces, it kind of solves itself. So now we'll go ahead to cut out lining for these two. Now onto the sewing part. This right here is the center front piece, and we have two of it. I also have the lining here. I will start by sewing by ½ inch, closing up the seam allowance around here, and I will stop once I get to this level. I may just start from there. Now here it is. I went ahead to press open the seam allowance, and I also did the same thing for the lining. Now I'll pick up the side panels and also sew them onto the center, ½ inch. So don't forget your notches when you are cutting. Don't forget to place notches at the bust point, under bust point, just to guide you when you're sewing. So you're going to place each notch against the other and sew by ½ inch, right side facing each other. I'll do the same thing on the lining. Now we have panels fixed together. We have this single piece, and then we have a deep V line here. Next, we'll be attaching the yoke to these bodies, and you have to start up by pinning. Okay, so on my yoke, I notched the part that aligns with this dart, so I know exactly where to fix into this dart. So you can also create other notches on from your pattern, and you transfer it to the fabric, and that will help you when you're sewing to know where to align with where. Okay. You have to start by pinning. So this is the wrong side. So because we have these two panels separately, we can treat these two separately. Just pick up your yoke this way, lay it on it, and pin the center on each of the seam allowances. When you're doing this, ensure that you don't drag the tool, because most likely you're using a stretchy tool. So ensure that you're not pulling it against your fabric, and you just pin like this. So now I'm done pinning. I can go ahead to sew. So you can see what's happening around here. I hope you can see this clearly. So the base of my tool is 1 inch wide. Remember the half inch. So I'm going to share it for these two seam allowances. So we're sewing half an inch all the way here, and we're sewing the second half an inch on this other side. See, I'm trying my best to ensure that you understand what I'm doing. I just hope this is clear enough. Please give this video a thumbs up if you're watching. And if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, this is the perfect time for you to do that. Thank you. So in sewing this, I think I should lower my camera so you can see this clearly. So in sewing this, I will just take one side, treat it completely, then start on the other side again completely, okay? Okay, so that we can have that sharpness. Now I'm done sewing the first part this way. The next step is to do the same thing on the other side, and ensure that you're starting at exactly the center of your tool again, the same place you started the first time, but you're sewing on the other side this time. Now here is the outfit, and you can see how neat here is already. Now I'm going to close up the seam allowance using the lining. Okay, we want to close this up. So what we'll do is to work with the seam allowance for each side. So this is what we want to achieve at the end of the day. So what I will do is pick up the seam allowance on the lining on this side and sew it onto the seam allowance of the main fabric on the same side. Okay, so once I get here, I'll just continue sewing till I get to the armhole. Now here's what we have on the sewn side. I'll go ahead and repeat the process for this other side. So here we are. Let me hold this on this dress form so that you see what we have. Can you hear me? This dress form's measurement is different, so it may not fit perfectly, but I think this will serve the purpose. I just wanted you to see what we have right here. See, don't mind all of this. I didn't add a breast pad, I didn't use interfacing. I'm not even sure I nudge and all of that, but you know what to do. Don't do like I do. Do like you've been taught. Okay, so you see how deep you can go. You can even go deeper without sweating. That's the most important part. So that's it for this tutorial. Please ensure that you watch the other videos on this channel. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. See you in the next video. Bye.